Hello and welcome to the Omega Review. Today we're going to be covering Mortal Engines. And here we go. We saw the movie Mortal Engines.
It was actually a movie that my husband saw the preview for and wanted to see, and I thought it was a sort of Harry Potter continuation, and I'm not really into Harry Potter, so I didn't really want to see it.
Yeah, normally Lady Omega here finds all the new trailers and things. But I saw this one and I saw Peter Jackson's name attached to it, so I didn't really care what it was. Just knowing he directed it and had something to do with it, I wanted to absolutely see it. Actually, I'm not 100% sure he directed. Well, maybe he did. I don't know. Well, he's in it, directed, or he did something with it. The movie's set about 10,000 years in the future, and Twinkies are still around from today.
Which is impossible.
Well, maybe they were in a vault.
But didn't they call them Winkies because the T was gone?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
That would be gross to eat a 10,000. I didn't think it was 10,000 years in the future. I thought it was like 1,000.
Yeah, they were really bouncing around on what the timeline was. He said, I think first he said it was a 1,000-year-old Twinkie, and then later in the movie they said something about 3,000 years ago was the war, and then somebody said 10,000 years later in the movie. I did check one of the fandom sites, though, and I think it is 10,000 years in the future.
I don't know.
This was a movie based on a book, or a series of books. I guess Peter Jackson read them right after Lord of the Rings. He was done with that. And just fell in love with the movie and had been working on it for like 10 years. So in this future, cities aren't safe anymore. So you need to mobilize it. And everybody gets together in a little town and build a big giant tracked vehicle that you drive around and pick up resources and whatever you need and trade with other towns and things. And you're always trying to escape London, which is the biggest of all of them, and it eats other towns and just rips them smaller towns apart for its resources.
Well, it starts out, there's, the main girl that was in the movie, and spoilers, of course, if you're watching this.
Jennifer.
You don't think anything's up. She's just in this town, and then they see London on the horizon coming towards them. And the track system is kind of like this big industrial tank sort of system. And you find out that the city that she's in is actually about a dozen little tiny towns. And they came together to trade and, to get news and stuff. And they basically scatter like a herd of zebras when they see London. And the one that she was on was called Bavaria, which I thought was pretty funny because it looked like old world German architecture. And they didn't escape London, which was fine for her because she wanted to kill the guy that was heading London, in charge of London.
Agent Smith.
Agent Smith, yeah. Hugo Weaving.
Mr. Anderson.
And they basically harpoon Bavaria and pull it in, and they take the citizens off, and the citizens basically
become citizens of London. That was funny.
Yeah, but they're not really citizens. There's a class system now where if you get caught by another town, you basically become a slave of the new town. You work in the boiler room and the septic system and stuff like that. But if you're higher class, you get a higher level of living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they had 5 or 6 classes. You'd be conscripted to the bottom class, and supposedly you can work your way up from there, depending on your abilities.
Yeah, because London, the behind the scenes was actually really fascinating. Because,
watch the behind the scenes if you get this DVD.
Because I think they said London was 7 levels, and they showed what was on the bottom levels, which was basically the machinery to run the track system. And then the next system was waste processing and maintenance, and you get to the very top level and they have like little mansions and gardens, and they get all the sunlight and stuff.
Yeah, they had little cool cars and things.
Yeah, they look like golf carts, segways.
Yeah, the movie itself, fantastic graphics. CGI was awesome. I'm thinking about doing a mini-series, history of Mortal Engines or something. There's an undead guy who's really cool.
I kind of wish they had gone more into detail about what was going on with him.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly the reason I was looking into the fandom, because they just touch on him a little bit and then kind of leave you hanging there. And so I looked up the fandom, and there are pages on it.
Yeah, he's sort of a zombie, but he's sort of mechanical. But
Because he was definitely developed militarily.
yeah, but he was an actual person once in his real life, but now he was mechanical and sort of indestructible.
And you can't remember your past life. Part of the transition is that you get a mind wipe.
Yeah, and they're like super soldiers.
And he's just a badass, too.
They didn't say who developed him or how old he was either.
Mm-mm.
They said he was really rare to find one because they all went like psycho and were kill on sight because they would take you down.
And it took a lot, because I think he could regenerate, too, pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. So the movie is basically what happened to civilization is they created a weapon called the Medusa, which vaporized all the major cities in the world. I think it just vaporized the people. I think all the buildings and stuff were left. But I could be wrong. And there's people called the Trackless, which have decided that they don't want to live in a mobile city, and so it looks like from the maps they're showing that they're somewhere in the mountains of China, and they've built this big, it looks like a dam, but there's no water behind it because the civilization's behind it. And Hugo Weaving builds a Medusa from the parts he's gathered from cannibalizing other towns, and he's going at this community of trackless people because they're basically sitting ducks because they can't run away. And his whole mission in the movie is to get through that wall and gobble up what's on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Which before that, no one was able to do that. That giant walled city had a ton of guns and stuff on top of it, and would take out any city miles before it got within range to use its weapons.
Yeah, as London's approaching the wall, you can see all these burned out communities of husks of the
Invaders.
track. Yeah, invaders. And they just run it over. I like the hot air balloon community.
Yeah, Cloud City?
I don't think they called it Cloud City because that's kind of taken by Star Trek or Star Wars.
Yeah, it was Cloud City on Bespin.
And it was basically, they were kind of the same theory as the trackless people, so they decided to live in the sky, and they had a bunch of cobbled together hot air balloons.
And that was really cool.
If you had a flying ship, you could go up and dock and trade with other people.
Yeah, their deal was, instead of doing a tracked city, you were flying up way, way above the towns, so you were impervious to their weaponry.
And then the zombie guy came and destroyed it.
Well, he was good at it, though. It didn't do good at the movie theater.
Tanked, big time.
A lot of people hated it. I didn't hear much about it, really. I saw some of the trailers before it came out, and then I forgot about it. I don't know. I was watching another YouTuber talking about something, and that was part of the deal, so that's when I had Lady Omega get it on Netflix DVDs.
I don't know if it would be feasible, though, to have a city as big as London on tracks. I think it would be too heavy.
Yeah, and they do show like the size of the grooves that these cities leave behind is about 10 feet deep, maybe 15 feet. And they're crawling around in them a little bit in the movie. And Yeah, no, I agree. They're pretty huge, but I think they kind of address it. I mean, these things are so big, it could drive over a major river, and it probably wouldn't have to slow down or nothing. Well, London is. I don't. The smaller ones maybe not.
Yeah, because didn't get Bavaria was coming up on a cliff and had to make a sharp turn away because they couldn't make that jump.
Mm-hmm.
And London just came through and just pulverized it. I just think of the resources that you would just mow down.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you destroy any sort of orchard or trees or
Oh yeah. These things tower over
farmland.
forests and
Yeah,
things.
skyscrapers on tank tracks.
Well, and there was a huge size variance too, because the regular towns
They were
were
just
almost plausible
yeah.
to today. Like you could maybe imagine seeing something like that or building something like it. But the size of London, I mean, it was, man, I don't know,
Massive.
30 times bigger than your average city.
Well, Bavaria looked like it was 4 3-story buildings,
Yeah.
maybe 6 buildings, and they were only about 3 stories tall.
And London looked like the size of London driving around.
Yeah.
I mean, it was huge.
But the graphics are so good because you can see the tank treads and then the secondary tank treads when they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. The other fun thing was the archaeologists, and they would dig around old cities from today, pull out old toasters and things.
They had a museum of tech, but they got it all sort of wrong.
That was funny.
That was behind the scenes. They had a bunch of PlayStations and Xboxes, and they're like 1876 or something.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of mannequins with glasses and stuff on them, and they were saying that people's eyesight was too good or something. They got blinded by the sun, so they had to wear sunglasses because their eyes were too good or something.
It was really neat. The looking at it like an archaeologist at an ancient culture, trying to decide why people did what, and us knowing why we do what we do, and then seeing how they kind of figured it out. I think it said something too like that PlayStation was 1978, and then they had like an Atari and it said 1992 or something.
Which I think would actually happen in the future. If people
Yeah.
are digging up trash dumps, they would find layers of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, now we have years printed on DVD boxes and on electronics and stuff, but we can only guess now, digging up relics from 2,000 years ago, when that was made, and just guess on who made it. But it'd be interesting to get a glimpse into the future when they're digging through trash, going, oh, what was this?
Mm-hmm. I like too what he said about the cloud. And they stored all their information up in the cloud, which disappeared, and they lost everything.
Yeah, they had microchips, and they didn't know how to access the stuff on the microchips because none of their tech worked with the microchips from now.
And that was a really neat point too. They said the height of their technology, they could download a person's memories onto a microchip and preserve it forever. But then the downside was they didn't know how to access it, and they couldn't access it or something. So they have the chips, but they don't know what's on them.
And they said they didn't think that we knew how to write,
Yeah.
like actual physical handwriting, because they didn't find a lot of written word. Everything was on all these microchips, which is actually what is happening now. Because, I mean, when was the last time you actually got a physical letter in the mail? Everything is electronic. Everything's emails and texts. So if, technology did go away,
And you couldn't access the data.
yeah, and you didn't have a written word or a letter, then you would kind of assume that ancient people were dumb because there was no written word of your history. Because it's all now digital. Good fight scenes, good choreography.
Yeah. A lot of big battles, a lot of little battles.
They did sort of leave it open to have sequels, I thought.
I could see that.
I think it would be a really good trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's enough source material to, because especially if it was a trilogy of books, to make a trilogy of movies. But it, like I said, I had never even heard of it or saw a preview for it. So I don't think it did very well in the box office, and Peter Jackman was working on it for 10 years doing the graphics and the sets and stuff, and then it didn't go anywhere, so I don't know if he's gonna even attempt to do a new one. It came out in 2018, so it's not an old movie at all. But I think the books were written back in 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, it'd be 2008, 2006 maybe.
Yeah.
Because I think it's whenever Lord of the Rings ended. Because that's when Jackson read them and was like, oh, I gotta make this into a movie.
But it is funny, it did feel very much like a Harry Potter movie. Like some of the scenes, because it's London and Harry Potter was sort of based in London. And so when they're walking around through the town of London, you can kind of see some of the stuff that looked very Harry Potter. And I think the guy who was in it, and I can't remember his name, I think he did sort of a spin-off when Harry Potter finished their movies. It was like, I can't remember the title of it, and he definitely had a wand, and it was like a...
Oh, yeah, that's Tank, didn't it?
Yeah, but it was, when I saw the preview for this movie, I was like, oh, it's just a continuation of the one he already did. And I didn't even think it was its own thing. And I was like, I'm not interested in the Harry Potter universe.
Me neither.
So it's like, yeah, I don't really want to watch it. And then you said, oh, no, it's totally not that. And I'm like, okay, well. My husband very rarely requests a movie.
I have a lot of movies already.
And so when he asks for one specifically, I always try and bump it to the front.
And sometimes they're good, like this one.
Well, the other thing is we like totally different movies, so it's rare to find one that we both actually want to watch. So that's nice.
Yeah, but this was a good movie. I'd say buy it. Definitely rent it.
I was having a hard time finding which genre it would go into. We've actually kind of talked about this, that a lot of movies nowadays don't fall into the horror and they don't fall into the sci-fi, that there should be a new kind of apocalypse movie genre, because it wasn't,
or post-apocalyptic.
it was futuristic, but it was apocalypse, but it wasn't horror and it wasn't based in space. So it's like, it doesn't fall into a category, which is why I think it didn't do good, because you can't really tell somebody, oh, well, they're, cities on tank tracks, and but they're in the future, but they're kind of in the past, because they're not.
And they're filming in New Zealand.
Always in New Zealand. Peter Jackman's always in New Zealand. But he's got a great crew down there that he trusts and works with. So, I mean, when you find a group of people that have your same vision, you stick with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely kind of like a Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, maybe Terminator, maybe kind of deal.
Yeah, it doesn't fall into its own. I don't even know where you would put that.
I mean, you know, because like you'd say you just go straight off sci-fi, but it wasn't.
No.
It's way in the future, but they're just they're like a little bit more intelligent mechanically, but not digitally. Like there is nothing digital in this universe. They didn't recapture that.
Right. So it's not really.
But they surpassed us in mechanics by far.
Yeah, but they're like stuck in the 1940s.
Yeah. It's almost steampunk too.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that you hit on that.
Because they don't have computers, but they have big machines.
Right. Yeah, steampunk. I completely forgot about that.
Maybe it could fall in that. If I don't know. I don't know if that's a genre, but.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very steampunk. I didn't even think about that.
Oh, and the aircraft in it were really cool. It's if you blended air balloons, hot air balloons, which is big in steampunk, and regular biplanes and airplanes, fighters and stuff, because all their wings, they're like filled with, they're actually filled with a gas that is not discovered yet.
Yeah.
That they find out how to mine, that's lighter than helium and more durable or something. So you can float something with less of the gas, or less, instead of a gigantic balloon full of stuff, you can just do it in the wings.
Yeah. The red plane that they show a lot kind of looked like a ladybug. Mm-hmm. The wings of a ladybug, but they were filled with this gas, but they were all like out like a ladybug. And then the bottom of it, I don't even know what I would describe. It was like a canoe, sort of, mm-hmm. but encapsulated, and it was really neat because I noticed that it wasn't actual wings that you would use on an airplane. It glided because it had an engine.
Yeah.
Like a car, and it didn't have a propeller. I don't think it had a propeller. And then it had
I forget if it had a propeller.
I don't think it did. And
the jet engine's easier to build anyways.
Yeah, and then it had like the purple flame coming out the back from the twin.
Oh, okay, yeah,
engine.
that'd be a jet then. Yeah.
And then it had the little giant ladybug wings,
mm-hmm.
with no spots. It was just red, but that's what it reminded me.
They could have made it look like a ladybug.
They could have, yeah. But all the aircraft at the floating airbase were all different, and that was really. It was a detail that probably took the illustrators years to do.
Oh yeah.
For a 30-second or a minute-long scene, but it was really neat because you would have different people cobbling together different aircrafts.
Mm-hmm.
From what they could find or what they could scavenge. So some of them weren't very pretty, and some of them were, and that was really unique to see.
Yeah, and if you wanted to live at Cloud City, you could just dock there, and then whatever you use to keep your own plane afloat helps to keep the city afloat.
Yeah. And like no smoking whatsoever signs everywhere.
That was funny.
Yeah, no open flame, no smoking, no...
Knives? There's knives on it?
It might have been. I think in the bar it said no knives.
Because it's basically a giant hot air balloon. That city is.
I'm kind of hard in ratings. I don't ever rate anything 5-star, very rarely. But this was definitely a solid 4 for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I didn't think I would.
Yeah, I agree. Except I'm going to go 5. It was really good. Could have been... well, actually, I would say my only complaint is it wasn't long enough. We needed more of this universe. And
for Peter Jackson to do, Lord of the Rings was like 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
At the running time of, I think it was like 2 minutes, or 2 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes or something. It seemed like it was really short.
Yeah. It left me wanting more.
Which is good.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to get a sequel.
That's not cool. Maybe we'll get a director's cut. Maybe they filmed more and cut it down or something. Maybe there's already a director's cut and I didn't look for it yet.
Maybe.
Maybe I'll get that for my birthday.
No.
Maybe you'll rent it for me for my birthday.
That I could do.
Well, right on. I'd say, yeah, definitely, if you haven't seen it, see it. You're going to love it. And thank you, Patreons, for patronizing me. I appreciate it. And thank you for royalty-free YouTube for this fantastic background. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share, please. Share, share, share. And have a great day. Bye-bye. You gotta say bye, too.
Bye.